All right, so week 1, we built a big giant wooden horse. Week 2, we climbed in it and crossed the city wall. Week 3, which is this week, we attacked Troy from within, and it's at this point that my metaphor just completely falls apart and doesn't work anymore. Hello, Lorcana lovelies. Over the past couple weeks, I have been learning how to play against Blurple by playing Blurple, and to my surprise, I really like Blurple. One of my biggest problems with aggro decks is how quickly you're top decking. And just completely empty-handed and at the mercy of however you, well you shuffled your deck. I don't like that, and I have to admit that is one of the major selling features for Control. Is it just has so much card draw that you don't really have to worry about top decking as much, and that feels great. I really, really do like that. But though I'm not a convert yet, I do like Control, and I think that everybody should be able to play Control, just like I think everybody should be able to play aggro or mid-range or tempo or combo. It gives you the most amount of options that when you go to a tournament, you can look at every deck that's out there and figure out what you want to play, as opposed to being in the position I felt like I've been in over the last couple months or year, where I'm saying, well, I only know how to play one deck, so I have to bring this one deck. I want to be able to look at it and say, what do I have the most enchantments for? I want to play that deck. Or, what deck have I been having the most fun with lately? I want to play that one. So yeah, that's kind of where I am here. I want to be able to play anything. So Control is, I just had to start at the end, which is like the toughest one, which was Control. And I don't think that it is actually that tough. One of the problems with Control when you're approaching it from like an aggro player's perspective is it plays completely differently. You have to turn off your aggro or mid-range style brain and treat Control almost as if it's a completely different game altogether. One of the problems when aggro or mid-range players switch to Control is you don't know how many of your default play strategies are aggro or mid-range strategies only. Most of the time you think, well, these are just lorcana strategies, or these are just whatever TCG you're playing strategies. Where a lot of them are very specifically rooted in kind of like the aggro or the questing style strategies. So as soon as you figure that out and turn that part of your default play style off, Control becomes a lot easier. So today we're going to talk about the end game. And unlike my previous video where I did like, here's what you want to do, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. The end game is very situational. Do you want to quest? Well, that really depends. Do you want to challenge? That also depends. Do you want to just draw cards? Again, it depends on what is out there. So we're going to talk today, instead of laying out ideally, here's how it goes, we're going to lay out your options and kind of when you would use them. So before we talk about that, I'm going to briefly recap. Looking at my notes here, it's not that brief. I'm going to briefly recap kind of the beginning part of the game so that we can like logically line ourselves up with the mid to end game and figure out kind of like where we are there. So early game. The early game, like winning any game of Lorcana, really depends on setting yourself up as well as possible in that early game, and that starts with your mulligan. In order to know what you want to mulligan for, you want to know what your first 3 turns look like, because that's kind of what you want in your opening hand. Now, bear in mind, nobody's going to get an ideal opening hand. Sometimes you do, and like, great, that's awesome for you, but it is very rare that you get everything that you want in your opening hand. Sometimes you draw it throughout your turns, and that feels great. But just because you don't get an ideal opening hand doesn't mean that it's a lost game or that it's bad or anything. It's just knowing what's ideal tells us what to toss back in favor of looking for something better. So, turn 1. We want to play an early character. It's not the end of the world if we don't, but like having an early character to interact with our opponent or maybe get like 1 or 2 pieces of free lore is great. Turn 2, we need ramp. I mulligan real hard for ramp with Blurple. And then turn 3, if we ramp, we should be on 4 ink, which means we need a 4-drop like Genie. He's kind of the most versatile, ideal one. But Madam and Elephant or Iago are also good because they can do a variety of different things, especially like challenging in and getting rid of your opponent's characters. Dumbo is not a turn 4 play. It's not a 4 ink play. He's a turn 4 play when you have 5 ink, because you can use him right away. So that's kind of what that early beginning part of the game looks like. And that's kind of what we want in our opening hand. And you want ink. So toss back the big uninkable things. Toss back the things that you're not playing until like turn 6 or 7. Those have no place in your opening hand unless they're inkable and you're playing a huge uninkable count in your list. Then maybe keep them to be safe. But like your Hades, Big Elsa, those go. And that's kind of my notes on opening hand and early turn play. So if we've done all this, we have an early turn character, we have turn 2 ramp, we have turn 3, let's say Genie, which means by turn 4, we're going to be sitting on 5 ink, and this is where we can really start to talk about this like mid-game section. What do you want to do when you start to hit turn 5? Well, that's, like I said, very situational. Do you quest? Sometimes you do. But you're only going to quest if characters are safe to do so and aren't going to be removed, because your early turn characters are not for questing. They are for dealing with your opponent or threatening that you can deal with your opponent. Do you challenge your opponent? Again, that's a little bit situational. You don't want to just throw all of your characters into one thing that doesn't matter that much and like empty your board for no reason. So, yes, sometimes you want to quest, sometimes you don't. Yes, sometimes you want to challenge, sometimes you don't. But the mid game is the area where you're going to be able to do multiple things per turn and start to really gain control. So let's stop, I guess, talking about that, and we're going to talk about the mid game, and we're going to break it into two, I guess, sections. You have your card draw, and then you have your answers. And obviously, kind of questing is its own thing, and you do it when you're safe. So we're going to talk about your options, but what you can do is like big chunks thing. I'm going to start with card draw because I have loved the card draw in Blurple, and I think you will too. So to start my rant on card draw is exceptionally important. The reason Control can control the board is because it has the options to be able to do the options to be able to choose what it wants to do. If you are just top decking and forced to play whatever's off the top, it doesn't really work that well because you might not get the best thing, or you might not get the thing that works the best for the situation. There's no reason to play Into the Unknown to get rid of something if, say, Elsa can do it. There's no reason to play in Elsa to be able to exert a character if they're already all exerted. There's some examples there. But there might be some times where you might want to play that Elsa anyways because her rush might do that extra damage. So this section of the game, like I said, is very much looking at the board, doing your mental math, figuring out what you can take out, and card draw lets you be able to do that because it gives you your options in your hand so you're not forced to play the one thing that's in your hand. So what do we want to do here? My best card draw in this deck, by far, should not shock anyone, is Dumbo. Dumbo turns every single character of yours that has evasive into the possibility of gaining you cards. Like I said, Dumbo is something that I would play on turn 5 when there's a Genie already out turn 4, 5 ink. Because there's already a Genie out and you can use Dumbo's Making History ability immediately. You can pay that 1 extra ink that you have left over because Dumbo only cost 4. And you can use it on Genie to exert Genie and gain 1 lore and draw 1 card. Now you might look at Genie, and the aggro player in me does this too, and say, but Genie quests for 2. Aggro is a race deck. Control is not. Control is the slow deck that wants to kind of gain control. And like I said, the card draw lets you do that. So early-ish game, you don't want to be questing with Genie if you have Dumbo. You want to gain those extra cards. Those extra cards are far more important than the extra lore. What else can we do here? Well, we don't want to play Dumbo if we don't have an evasive character out. I mean, like, if he's the only card in their hand, I guess do it. But we don't want to play Dumbo and not get any use out of him with, like, that Making History ability. If we can keep Dumbo safe, that's awesome, and that would be our preference. Genie, like I said, is good card draw as well as far as options go, and it is very important to be able to figure out if you want to quest with him or if you want to be able to use the Making History. But the fact that he just comes in and gets you a card is also great. We have a couple of actions that gain us cards as well. There's Hypnotic Strength, which is great because it gives us the bonus of pumping up one of our characters, making them a little bit bigger, which might make the challenges better on our side. So if we can say Hypnotic Strength, a Tippo, and Tippo now is hitting for 3 and he can take something else, then that is great. We have utilized our cards as best as possible. We've drawn a card and removed one of their characters. Another one is Finders Keepers. Finders Keepers just straight up draws us cards. It's an action, which is good. Blurple plays enough ramp and enough ink that getting to be able to play Finders Keepers and just play the 5 ink for it is totally possible. And then it draws us cards and puts them right into our hand. Second Star to the Right is played in a couple of them. I love Second Star to the Right. It draws you 5 as opposed to 3. and you can use the sing together. So once you start to get your big characters out, it doesn't take a huge amount of characters to sing together. Second star to the right to gain you those 5 cards, and now you have 5 cards in your hand. Like late game, that is a lot of cards. But by far, Dumbo is like the king of card draw engine in this deck. So that's your card draw options. You want to be using it as much as possible. And so I guess other evasive characters, just to note, Iago and Elsa the Fifth Spirit also draw you cards with Making History from Dumbo. So just remember that. Draw as many as possible. We're going to talk about answers now. So in the answers category, we do have a lot of different things. Early game, it's mostly characters like the Royal Guard or Rafiki to challenge into our opponents, or threaten to be able to challenge into our opponents' characters to be able to remove them. Mid-game, we're looking at a lot of different options here. So I'm just going to, like I said, list the options because they're all situational, and whatever you have in your hand is going to depend on what you want to use and when. First off, I have Elsa the Fifth Spirit. I love Elsa the Fifth Spirit. She is like a massive, amazing card in Blurple. She is definitely, like Dumbo is the backbone of the card draw. She becomes the backbone of the answers card. She is removal that sticks around. So you can play her, you can exert a chosen character. So anything that your opponent is trying to keep safe, or perhaps if they're sitting at like 16, 17 lore and they just play characters thinking they're upright, they're safe, Elsa removes that. So she comes in and she turns something sideways immediately. And then since she has rush, it means she can challenge in with them. Now, mid to late game, not necessarily a lot of things are taken out by Elsa. However, there's ways to whiz around that as well. If we played a Basil early game, Basil can quest to support Elsa. And then Elsa's now hitting for 4. Just thing to note here about the way that you would stack this, you'd have to play Elsa first and then quest with Basil so that you have a target for Basil. But 4 should be able to take out the vast majority of things, which is kind of great there. So that's a great way to use Elsa, but it's also a great way to use Elsa just to be able to like exert their things and be able to challenge in with them. We also, now there are 2 Elsas in the list. So there's Big Elsa, or at least some lists play Big Elsa. I love Big Elsa. I really like that she just taps down those 2 characters and she freezes them for a turn. So you don't have to worry about them for the next turn. So you just need to buy that 1 turn where those characters are turned sideways. She does that. However, she also buys you 2 turns of of challenging if you need to. So if the characters are a little bit on the bigger side and your characters can't really take them out, or that hypnotic strength would make a difference on pumping up your characters to be able to make them bigger, she buys you that extra turn by forcing them to stay sideways. So yeah, she's great, but the thing to note about her is she is not evasive, so she's vulnerable to being challenged, and she doesn't gain you cards with Dumbo. That would be the only thing to note there. So I would probably prefer to play her than the shifter. But again, late game, if that 3 extra lore would make a difference, or her coming in, or the saving the ink would make a difference, feel free to shift her. Next answer I want to talk about is Madame Mim Elephant. Madame Mim Elephant, whenever I see that being played, I just need to get rid of it. I look at it and think, oh my goodness, you are a 3/7, you do so much damage. And you move damage around at the beginning of each turn, and 7 is so hard to get rid of. I just get like this anxiety about I have to get rid of that elephant. She's also good because she bounces a character when she comes in. So though she could bounce something that you played early game, like say a Tippo or a Rafiki that you might be able to use as ink, she also bounces your characters late game that could get you more benefit. So she could bounce an Elsa, either Elsa. She could bounce a Hades, and then comes into play abilities right away when you play them the next turn. So she lets you get extra value off of those characters. She, like I said, when she challenges into something, she's a 3/7, so she can do a decent amount of damage, and she definitely sticks around. And then at the beginning of your next turn, if your opponent hasn't gotten rid of her, you can move damage from her onto one of your opponent's characters. Which is a great way to start to clean up things, especially, again, if those characters are not turned sideways. So it is a good way to get rid of characters that they just played, and all of a sudden nothing really becomes safe anymore. The thing is, you do need to get damage on her. So say, I don't know, playing a Mim, if they stop turning their character sideways, this is when you'd play an Elsa to exert their characters and then challenge them in with the Mim to be able to start to move that damage around. Speaking of moving damage, we have Belle. Belle is definitely like the best moving damage. She does the same type of thing as Madame Mim. It's just instead of at the beginning of each turn, she does it right when she comes into play. So obviously there's no damage on Belle. She can move damage from anyone. So if your opponent has a bunch of damage out on their characters, you can take damage from one character and move it to one of their other characters to be able to get rid of it. Or you can take damage from your characters and move it onto your opponent's characters to heal up your characters and get rid of theirs. She moves more damage than Madame Mim does. She moves 3 damage, but it is just a once a turn thing. Or sorry, a once when she comes into play thing as opposed to a once a turn thing. But again, we could bounce her with cards like Mim to be able to get that effect more than once. Hades is the next one. Hades is like the quintessential removal spell here. He just turns something to ink. He's been a great removal card since the first set. Now he is giving your opponent ink, so that is something to be aware of, that you are going to be giving your opponent some ink here. But the fact that you're just getting rid of something, and it's anything, it doesn't have to be sideways, it can be upright, you can just get, anything gets turned into ink. It is worth giving them the extra ink there. And again, we could bounce Hades with the Madame Mim to be able to get more than one effect out of him, since it's just when he comes into play. Last kind of 3 that I have to talk about here we have Ursula. Ursula does have a nice little combination. So Ursula, this is very cute. So when you play Ursula, you get to exert chosen character, and then you get to play a song for free that is equal to or less than their ink cost. So you can exert anything that's, say, 3 and above, and then you can play Into the Unknown for free and get rid of it. So it becomes a very nice, quick way about play Ursula and just get rid of anything. Likewise, you could just play Into the Unknown or sing it with anybody. It's just a cute interaction there, specifically with the Ursula. So Into the Unknown is another one. Turn something to ink. It has to be exerted. There's ways to exert your opponent's characters, as we've just discussed. Last one here is Magical Maneuvers. This is one that's typically like a one-of in the list. It's super cute. I like it. You return something of yours to your hand to exert one of your opponent's characters. So again, we just went over a whole bunch of characters that have comes into play abilities. So you, played Hades the last turn. This turn, you're going to play Magical Maneuvers, bounce that Hades back to your hand, which means you have it again, and you get to exert one of your opponent's characters. So as you can see here, gone over a bunch of cards, both card draw and answers, and this is kind of where Blurple really shines. This is the reputation that it has, in all control decks, not just Blurple. You could replace this with the Baja ones, the Emerald Sapphire ones, or even like the Amethyst Ruby ones in the previous season, like the bounce ones. It's what makes control so good and so effective and so consistent. They have a good amount of card draw, which gives them options to be able to play whatever they need to play, as opposed to forced to play the only thing in their hand. They have big late game threats that they get to quickly because of ramp. And those big late game threats often come with either once a turn effects, like say Mim, or comes into play triggers like, the rest of them, Elsa, Hades, and Belle there. And they are big and very impactful. And these characters are also characters that have a good stat line. So some of them quest for 2. Most of them are a hit for at least 3 and have like a 4 or a 6 defense. So they're hard to get rid of anyways. And Control can use these to be able to clean up the field. So what do you do next? Well, if you have effectively done your beginning game, so you've done turn 1 play, turn 2 ramp, turn 3 card draw, turn 4 Dumbo to be able to use your genie that you used the previous turn to be able to draw more cards. And then next turn, Elsa, the 5th Spirit. Tap something down, swing into it to get rid of it, maybe support with a Basil to be able to get rid of something that's a little bit bigger. Next, we're going to play a Hades to be able to just get rid of something there, and then maybe like a Mim to bounce our Hades or our Elsa, whichever one we need, to be able to just kind of play it again. You can see how you're chipping down at your opponent's board, not to mention that you have enough bigger characters to be able to challenge into anything else that they have, or evasive characters too, safely and kind of to safely quest or use Dumbo's Making History ability. This is how Blurple wins, is it doesn't care about the early game. Your opponent could be at 16 lore, and it doesn't mean they're going to win. I have been the aggro deck at like 19 lore, and I just cannot cross that finish line, because when it comes to the late game, Blurple dominates. All control decks dominate. And this is what makes them so powerful and so effective. So hopefully, looking at kind of all of these answers and stuff, now Whispers comes out at the end of the week. So I'm sure some of this will change. But you can see the core of the deck is probably going to remain unchanged because it is just so strong. Now, it doesn't mean that it is the strongest deck out there. I mean, it's a strong deck, but it can be beat. And we did see that in the Milwaukee DLC. It was beat by... because it didn't make it to the top. What we have in the top is Amethyst Steel. And a lot of what makes Amethyst Steel good is the same type of thing that makes Blurple good, is it has good card draw engines and it has answers. We'll do another one on them. But this is Blurple. We have now effectively, I guess, attacked the city of Troy, and no, my metaphor falls apart. I don't have anything for the rest of this. So go give Blurple a try, at least before it rotates, and I'm sure in a week we'll have new lists for it.